Okay, with Andrea First here from Mental Notes Consulting, also a consultant to the Australian Institute of Sport. Welcome to mykayakcoach.com.
Thank you very much, Jimmy.
The racing and paddling can be quite hard, and when we talk of champions, we talk about how strong they are and physical, but their mental strength of how they can push through it. People say, oh, he's such a tough racer. What is the difference between a tough racer who is a champion versus the average person who just wants to go for a paddle and enjoy a Sunday race or set themselves a goal, and people don't talk about them in this tough mental state?
I think when it comes to paddling in particular, the intensity in which they train has a huge impact in the way that they compete. So what we're trying to do in training is have the mind working at its optimum whilst you're training. So engaging in the activity just like they would in competition, and then having that, evidence collected over, a long period of time in their training program that then says, I can do this physically, I can do this technically, and I can do this mentally. Take that to competition, and essentially you're doing the same thing again. So it's repetitive, and it's being, might sound a little silly, but it's really being super competitive within themselves, and then taking every opportunity in their training programs to be competitive against other people as well.
So when you get off the water, should you be as mentally exhausted in every session as you are physically, or would you pick one session to be mentally exhausted, as in race practice, and then not be physically tired, or should you practice mental training as much as physical training within the same session?
My preference would be integrating all of the skills as much as possible. So I tend to separate practice from technical training. And when I say technical training, there could be drills in training where you are just working on the technique of the actual stroke and the paddling. It could be that they're off breathing, doing relaxation work that they're obviously not going to do lying on their back, relaxing on the water, but they will do that maybe before the start line. So what we're doing then is we're technically training the skills that they need to pull together. It's just like in the gym, they're technically training their strength work through squats or bench or whatever they're doing. We're not seeing that on the water. Compare that technical training to then practice, where you're actually integrating, as you said, the physical, the technical, and the mental skills together that are combining to say this is how we want to do things for competition. So it's combining all of the skills, and there will be training sessions where that will happen, where you're basically doing race-like mental, physical and technical training combined.
Come in close. Can everybody hear me? Wait for that aeroplane to go. Okay, our next effort is a 3K race. Everybody together. We must all go at race pace. This way we practice racing in training, so when we get to a race, it's not a shock, which means we have to lift up the stroke rate from the start, so that when we get to racing, it's not a shock. We can go at the start. We can go fast. Now, when we line up, we're going to line up. I want you to line up who your ability is, so you don't get blown away. It'll be a proper start. We need to practice the start correctly. If you practice braking in training, you will brake in a race. Brake in a race and you'll be disqualified. Line it up. Hold it there, Mark. Enough room, Luke? Okay, everybody hold it there. Hold your boats. Remember, we're practicing like a race. So if your boats aren't still, you're not practicing like a race. Start within 10 seconds. Come on, Mark. Go. They're going to position themselves in a good position for a sprint finish. When they come through the bridge, you want to be on one of the sides, so then you can make a dart from it. Being in the back means you have to paddle through the wash and through the paddlers, and you're already going to be about a boat length behind. So you want to be sitting on the sides, conserving an energy. Come on, come on, practice your racing, come on, come on. Now's the time the winner goes. The winners go for it now. The winners go for it. 50 out, lift, lift, lift. Row 12, buddy. So in actual fact, that would help. There's athletes who are physically in great shape.
Yep.
They're training the house down, they're winning training, they're beating their partner, they're doing everything right. But then they get to the start line and they just go to jelly. I mean, you've seen that 100 times before.
Yep. Is
this training essential to stop yourself going to jelly in racing? Because the champions seem to just put it together every time, non-stop. The average person trains well, races terrible.
Yep.
Any tips there, please?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of simple and it sounds really easy to do, but hard to actually put into practice and training. It is that exact point of mentally working at every training session like you want to compete. So you watch some of the best guys on the water when they train, and even some of the best girls, and I've had obviously experience through the flat water and seeing them train and how committed their minds are to what they're doing, and then seeing how that transfers to when they compete. And you'll see that in every single sport. It's repetition of applying themselves mentally as well as technically and physically, so that when they get to competition, it's just the same. They do the same things. They've got very set routines. Your point about pre-race, going to jelly, I mean, that's a common thing in lots of different sports, and basically it's setting up that routine so that pre-race time they're doing the same things every race. They've practiced it in their training, they know what they're going to do, they know what they're going to think, therefore they know how they want to feel, and it just becomes again this whole routine of patterns and of behaviours that they want to engage in.
How much energy could I burn through being mentally thinking about the race non-stop?
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear that athletes talk about feeling tired or feel like they've raced the race before it started, and that's is almost like the mental energy. If you can imagine the brain almost like a muscle and it's working too hard, there's too much brain activity. Now, in terms of quantifying that, the best way to do that is through EEG, and we actually get the brain's activity and what it's actually doing. It's pretty difficult to do pre-race in terms of the equipment, but I think we'll start seeing some of those things happening more and more in sport, where we're getting some quantifiable data on what the brain's actually doing. So in terms of saying, okay, how much energy is being burned, at the moment it's a considerable amount, but I can't quantify it exactly. But I think that, if you look, and I'm sure you've got guys in your training squad, Jimmy, that where they've just burnt themselves up before they race. And it's not because they're unfit, it's not because they're not up for it technically or physically, but mentally they've just done their dash before they've actually started on the racing.
Is there anything I can do that can help me when I turn up to race day from your point of view?
Yeah. I think the points we made earlier about setting up training to be much more race-like and much more competitive within yourself and versus others. And then the other side of it is knowing how to relax yourself. So learning how to do some basic deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, maybe some progressive muscular relaxation. Meditation can work, same thing with some relaxing imagery. I mean, there's lots of different skills that athletes can learn from coaches or sports psychologists or courses that they might go to or books, and they can actually learn those skills and implement them. And if they know they're one of those people, then it's kind of like taking your medicine. You then need to use those skills on a regular basis, so that when or if you do get nervous, then basically you've got those skills to come in and help you manage yourself.
And a special thanks to Andrea First from Mental Notes Consulting. We'll hear more from Andrea in future podcasts.